So this is the simmer you want on the soup to finish it up. This just gets everything nice and thick without like mashing out the food stuff. We're all done now. We're starting off with some chicken. I'm using the chicken rib. Some people use the back, but I'm using the rib. I like the bone because it gives it a lot of flavor, and I want some meat on it, so I'm using this. But you can use any part of the chicken you want. I'm gonna I washed it with some vinegar already, so I'm gonna now squeeze some lime juice on it and rub it in. Right, and then leave it for about 5 minutes, then rinse it off, and then I'm gonna cut it into the size that I want it. I'll let that sit for 5 minutes. Okay, so you can cut the chicken into whatever size you like. I'm gonna leave on the skin, just a little piece of skin here because it adds extra flavor to the soup. So I'm just gonna cut here where the meat is, cut through the bone there, and I have a nice little about 2 inch by 1 inch size. Here is a little longer piece of chicken. I'm gonna cut through here to where the rib joins, right here. So you can use whichever part of the chicken you like. These are the parts I like. This part is a little difficult to cut through. You can just break it through, or if you have a chopper, you can use a knife too. But I don't want to splash, so I'm just gonna break it right here and cut it through. And I'll do that for all the other parts. So you examine and make sure there are no parts that need cleaning out. You clean out everything out of here where the bone is. Clean out all the, I think it's the lung and all those things. You clean that up. Okay, so we're gonna season the chicken now. When you season the chicken like this, there's no need to put any other chicken noodle soup or any packet soup or any chicken broth or vegetable broth in the soup, because this gives you a good amount of flavor for the soup. Alright, so I'm gonna add some salt. This is about a 1/4 teaspoon. I'm add just a little bit more. Yes, it's about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You can always taste afterwards and add more if you want. I'm gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Let me add some more. Oh, this is meat spice. This is the meat spice, not so 1/2 teaspoon of meat spice. And we're gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And we're gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of chicken spice. Let's add a little more. So let's say 1/2 teaspoon because it's soup. We want to add a lot, so a lot of the flavor will go into the soup. I have some herbs and spices seasoning here. So you can add your favorite seasonings, but these are the ones that I use. This is another 1/2 teaspoon to a 3/4 teaspoon. And Mrs. Dash, I'm adding a 1/2 teaspoon of Mrs. Dash. 1 teaspoon of Mrs. Dash. And let's stir. So I'm gonna give this a little stir. So if you want, you could season the chicken from the night before. Based on how I'm doing it, there's no need to do that. So I'll leave this for maybe about a 1/2 an hour to 1 hour, or as long as it takes me to finish preparing the rest of the items for the soup. So I'll just cover it up. You know I love these containers. I just cover it up and put it away until I'm ready for it. Here I have about 2 pounds of pumpkin. I'm not gonna use all of it, but I'm still gonna prepare everything, clean it up, and use what I want and put the rest in the fridge. So I use a sharp edge spoon, and you could use a knife too, and I just scrape out all the seeds out of here, and then I'm gonna peel off the skin off the back. So I want to start some pumpkin in my garden, so I think if this pumpkin tastes good, then I'll use I'll plant the seeds. So I'll just finish cleaning up all of this. Actually scrapes easier from the bottom to the top where the vine is attached. If you don't have pumpkin, you can use squash. I don't remember the name of the squash, but it's a nice yellow squash. It makes a good soup. When I was in Canada, I used that instead of this pumpkin here. Okay, I'm gonna use about a half of this pumpkin. So that's gonna be about a pound of pumpkin. But let's see. Sometimes it depends on how rich the pumpkin is. Like, this is not as dark and yellow as like dark orange. The ones which are very dark have more flavor and gives the soup its color with less pumpkin than the ones which are lighter in color. So I'm gonna put these 2 pieces inside, so I get about a pound. So what I'm gonna do, because it has these deep grooves here, I'm gonna cut it so it's easier for me to peel and get in between the grooves. So I cut it right in the groove so I can peel it easier. So I'll just go down like this with a knife in a downward motion. So I leave a little of the green just to get more vitamins and nutrients out of it. So that peels quite easily. I stick with what I'm accustomed to. Some people are very good at just peeling it in one big slice and peel it towards them. But I want to be careful because I don't want any of my viewers to get cut. So I'm being extra careful. So I'm just gonna peel these just like how I did the other pieces, and then we start to cut up. Okay, so I'm gonna put the skin in the container. So you could dice up the pumpkin, but you don't really need to go through all that trouble. Once you cut it, I learned this from my dad growing up. Once you cut it in some long strips like this, about this, and put it in the pot, they'll boil and mash out in no time at all. But if you feel more comfortable, you can cut it up in small cubes if you want. But this works pretty good. So all of this is gonna boil and mash out and form a nice thick creamy soup. So what I'm gonna do with the other pieces, let me show you what I'll do with the other pieces of the pumpkin. Like, I'm gonna take a piece, and let's take this piece. I'm just gonna cut it, and these I'm gonna put in the soup to boil, and I'm gonna have these, and I'm gonna take them out before they mash out, and have these as pieces of what we call provision in our soup. might not use everything. I'm gonna save back a little piece, I think. Depends on how much the pot can hold. So that is for later. These are gonna be what I'm using for the base of the soup. Alright, so we're all done now. Okay, I'm using 1 cup of carrots approximately. So I've peeled the carrot already. I'm cutting it because it's such a big carrot. I'm cutting it into quarters. And a little chunky, not too skinny, because I don't want it to be mashed out in the pot. So I would say a medium carrot. So this is about a cup of carrot. I'm gonna use 2 medium corns. This is small. So I'm just gonna cut them in about 1.5 inch rounds. Let me show you an easy way to cut them. You could use a metal, but I have a wooden mallet. This is what I use to tenderize my meat or so. So I'm just gonna use it like this. Cut it down like that. You can secure the corn with a tablecloth or dish towel so it doesn't roll all over the place. Okay. So I'm gonna cut off a little bits at the end. I don't want that in the soup. And I cut off this is the part at the bottom already. So I have my corn ready. Okay, so cut it up very small because you don't really want to taste it in the soup. You don't want to be biting on any onions. So this is about 1/2 cup. If it goes over or goes under a little, it doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm gonna add about 1 tablespoon of coconut oil to the pot. Just enough that the chicken doesn't stick to it. I'm gonna add my chicken now. Just add everything out of. I'm using a spatula to make sure I get everything out of the plate. So we need all of that goodness to give the soup the flavor. I'm not gonna let it brown. I'm not gonna let it brown. I just want the chicken to just get a little of the oil to fry up the seasoning on each side of the chicken to get out that flavor into the seasoning. And at the same time, I'm gonna just add the onions same time. So, and I'm gonna cover that and then leave it for about 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna turn the chicken now. Notice it's not brown, it's just slightly cooked. I just want it to have, that's about 5 minutes after on a medium heat. And as soon as another 5 minutes. I'm gonna turn it. I'm just gonna add some water. I'm gonna leave it for another 5 minutes and cover it again. So I'm gonna add my pumpkin now. Remember, this is a pound of pumpkin. This is a pound of pumpkin. I'm gonna add my corn. And I'm gonna cover this with water. What I did, I have a pot of water which is hot. I boil that, so that means the soup won't get cold. It won't take a long time to get hot again. So it speeds up my cooking process. I'm just gonna add some hot water now to the pot. Okay, so this is 2 cups. That means I need some more. This is another 2 cups. So I'm gonna try and ensure everything fits in this because I don't want too much water. So I'm gonna cover this up and let it boil until the pumpkin is soft and mashed out and the corn is boiled. I'm gonna add a cup of flour. That's a little bit over, but that's alright. So you can see a heaped cup of flour. I'm gonna make some dumplings. You can use any type of flour you prefer, but we usually use the white flour. So this is all-purpose flour. So I'm gonna add a little salt, just a pinch, about 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Okay, so I'm gonna mix up the salt in the flour. Form a little hole in the middle. And let me see, I'm not sure how much water I'm gonna need because every flour is different. So I have a cup of water there, so I will know how much I've put in when I'm done. I like to use a spoon first. You don't have to use a spoon in the beginning, but I like to start with a spoon. Just a little bit more. Okay, so when I just have a little flour, I start to use my hand. So far I've added about a 1/4 cup of water. So I use my fingers and just gonna continue like this until everything comes together in a nice dough. I think I'm gonna need a little bit more water. So my dough is a little too soft. I don't want it this soft. So I'm gonna add just a little flour. So it doesn't matter if you don't get it right. You can always fix it, okay? So I added just a little flour. I'm gonna knead it now. Everything is coming together nicely now. Just continue like this until you have it depends if you want your dumplings to be really soft. You don't have to knead it too long. If you want your dumplings to be a little what we call tighter, then you really put in some muscle into it, and I continue to like this until I get a nice smooth dough. Okay, so now I like the consistency of the dough. Just like that. So I'm gonna leave it. You can just make it into a nice little round dough. And leave it like that, and you can cover it until we're ready to add it to the soup. I'm gonna add the carrots. And I'm gonna add these pumpkin, but I'm gonna take these out once they're boiled because I don't want them to be mashed out. These pieces. So this is about half a pound of pumpkin. Cover back the pot. Cut it down. So it looks. I'm gonna put down a half because I don't need all of it. I really just need a quarter, but I think I might just boil some extra because I love boiled breadfruit. So what I'm doing, to make it easier to peel, I'm just gonna cut it into slices first. Some people like the greener breadfruit. I like what you call the full breadfruit because this one can be roasted. So when it's boiled, it has that taste more like a yam. So I think that is enough. So I just I'm not ready to put it in the pot as yet. So I have a container here with some water, some hot water, which I filled from the tap. I'm just gonna place them in there. You can cut them a little smaller, just like that. So I'll do that for the whole half of this breadfruit. You have to cut out this middle here. We don't need this part. Cut it in half. Sometimes when you cut the breadfruit, you will see some little brownish spots. Like here, usually if it falls, where it falls, it might get a little bruised, even though it falls on the outside, but usually this happens. So I don't use those parts, I cut it off. So the soup is boiling away. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take out the corn because the corn is finished. And I need some space in the pot. And why I like to take out the corn too, because the middle of the corn here, we don't eat that and it will absorb a lot of the seasoning. So I like to take it out. I'm gonna cover it and let the pumpkin get in the water. Those pieces I still take them out because they're almost done. So I'm gonna peel my cocoa yam. This is a large one, so I just need one of it. This is what we call ground provisions. These and the yellow yam and all of that. Even though bananas don't and breadfruits don't grow underneath the ground, Sometimes we just put them in one group and call them provisions. So I put this on the cutting board because I don't want the cutting board to get messed up. But I've washed it off. Some supermarkets will give you them already washed, but I still like to give them a little wash. But if you're in the country cooking like a big pot outside, people don't bother to wash them before, they just wash them afterwards, after they peel them. So if you are not comfortable with a knife, I'm going to cut off this part because this part isn't so good. Don't hold it in your hand, cut it in two and like hold it on the board and go like this, or cut it like this and peel down and around. Don't hold it in your hand like this because the knife can slip and you can cut yourself. So I'm going to wash this off, then cut it and put it in the pot in this container. So I'm going to take out the pumpkin, these ones that I told you I want to, so I know them different because they have the skin attached to them. I'm going to take these out. So I'm going to add my breadfruit. I could add the yellow yams now, but it's not ready to be added yet. I have it in the fridge, so I'm just gonna add the breadfruits now. Because the breadfruits boil easily, they'll boil before the yellow yam most definitely. So if I see like they're getting too soft, I will just I have to add some more water to the pot now to cover the breadfruit. I'm adding 2 more cups of water to the pot. Okay, so I have my cocoa yam. I changed my cutting board. So checking it to make sure it is totally clean. Okay, I'm gonna cut it up now. I won't cut it too small because when they're boiled, they will this looks like it's a little when they look so white, when they boil they get very soft, so I'll leave it like that, and when I'm ready to share I can cut them. So I'm gonna add the cocoa yams. Make sure they're covered. Okay, my yellow yam was in the freezer, so luckily I've got it already peeled, so I don't have to peel it again. It's a little frozen, so it's gonna lower the temperature of the soup, which I didn't want, but I should have taken it out before. As you can see, it's frozen. So what I'll do, I won't force it, I'll just put it in the pot as is. This one is a little thick, so it's hard to cut. I'll put it in the pot, and when it's boiled I'll cut it up. So let me add the yellow yam. They're frozen, so it's gonna let the soup take longer to boil up, but that's alright. This piece, because it's frozen, it's hard to cut, so I'll put it in whole, and then later let me put it down. Right, cover them completely. So I'll cut them after they're boiled. Okay, so I'm ready for the dumplings. Hands have to be washed and dried completely. And let's see if this is okay. If you feel like it's sticking to your hands, then you just sprinkle a little flour on top of it. But it's nice smooth dough. It has been resting for quite some time. So I'm just going to pinch off a little piece. I'm going to show you how I make the spinners. I showed this to you in another soup video I have, in the pepper pot soup video, but I use a different flour then. So just make these little what we call spinners. Alright, and put them in the pot. Make sure the water is hot. And now we're going to make the dumpling. You can make bigger dumplings. I like some little neat dumplings. Or you can roll them like this and drop them in the pot just like that. Some people do that, but I like to flatten them out. So you can do that and flatten them out and put them in the pot. But it's a little sticky, so I'm gonna add a little flour to it, just a little sprinkle of flour. As I had it covered, so I'm just gonna sprinkle just a little bit, about a teaspoon of flour on it, just a little bit. Now it should be well. So I'm not gonna knead it again. I'm just gonna take off the flour, a little piece. So sometimes I have a little way I do it like this. And make it middle. And bring everything to the center. And use your finger to just form it into a nice little round dumpling. Get a nice perfectly round dumpling. Or you can also do like this to get the shape that you want. It doesn't have to be neat. I'm just doing this for the video. And it's the other one. So I'm going to make these now and put them in the pot. So I'm going to give the pot a little stir. So I was being gentle before because I wasn't ready to mash out the pumpkin yet, but now I can start stirring up. Now I can start stirring it up and let the pumpkin mash out so that the soup will get the nice thickness that I need. I'm going to add the dumplings now. And these will sort of thicken up the pot too, give the soup a little thicker texture. So you can make them as big as you want or as small as you want. I make them like bite size. So when I'm almost done, I will come back to the video. Let me make some round ones now. So the pot is not bubbling, but it's hot because the yellow yam was frozen. So it dropped the temperature of the soup, but it will soon start boiling again. But if it's cold and you put the dumplings in, they will stick together and get soggy and all of that. So you have to, or the shape, they won't have the original shape. So it's good to make sure the water is hot before you put the dumplings in. Some people keep it covered, and each time they're gonna put in a dumpling, they lift the cover. But that's too much work for me. So, and because I'm doing the video, I want you to see the pot. So, alright, I'm gonna finish up these dumplings now. And then I'll show you where we are after that. Alright. Okay, so I'm finished now putting in the dumplings. I'm just waiting on the pot to start bubbling again because I don't want to turn the pot until the dumplings have been set. So you need the heat for that. So I'll just leave it like that, cover it up and let it start bubbling. Okay, so pot start to bubble again. So I'm gonna turn it and ensure the dumplings Go to the bottom. Here I'm gonna add a little more water, about a cup. I'm gonna stir the pot. I think I'm gonna add back some of the pumpkin. Try to just mash them and add them to make the soup a little more yellow. This from my perspective that I'm seeing here. So the next thing, now we're gonna add the seasoning. The seasonings I'm adding: 2 sprigs of thyme, the garlic, the scallion, the scotch bonnet pepper, and another half a cup of chopped onions. Adding my onions, thyme, garlic, and the scallion, the scotch bonnet. We don't want the scotch bonnet to burst, so we have to be careful how we stir the pot. See what is happening with the pumpkin, so I can make sure all the pumpkin is mashed out that was in the pot. Yes. So, right. That's why I like to have some extra pieces of pumpkin, so that I can just in case I need to add some more to thicken up the soup some more, I just make the soup a little richer. Just peel off the skin. I will just mash them, so I don't have to worry about them getting mashed again. So I'll just mash them. Okay, so I'll just add the pumpkin. If you don't like your soup nice and thick, then you don't have to do this. That means I really should have added 1.5 pounds of pumpkin, or added less water. So if you're gonna add less provisions, then you add less water. Okay, so I'm just gonna let this simmer now. Turn it on medium to low and let it simmer for about a half an hour, and that will let the soup come together really nicely. Turn the pepper up. Checking on the pot. This is after about 15 minutes. Just giving it a little stir. Forget to taste your soup, so I'm gonna add about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and give it another little stir. And I like to use, because it's a non-stick pot, I like to use a metal spoon and just scrape the bottom to make sure nothing is sticking. So I just let that simmer for another 5 minutes. It's better to have less salt than more, because you can always add some salt to your taste when you're eating. It's better to add less salt than more, because you can always add salt when you're eating. Soup. So remember, if you don't want it this thick, you can always add more water. So this is how I love it. So this is the simmer you want on the soup to finish it up. This just gets everything nice and thick without like mashing out the food stuff. We're all done now. All finished now. So here we have our pumpkin, have our chicken, our breadfruit, we have our corn, scotch bonnet pepper, brown dumpling, spinach dumpling, and let me see, yellow yam, cocoa yams, and that's our Saturday soup.